Imagine a life where the world is your playground, private Gulfstream jets, five-star suites in London, and a diamond empire at your fingertips. It starts with a swipe, a simple digital connection. But for the women on the other side of this screen, it wasn't the start of a fairy tale. It was the beginning of a $10 million nightmare. His name? Simon Leviev. At least, that's what he wanted them to believe. To the world, he was the Prince of Diamonds. To his victims, he was a ghost, a phantom who vanished the moment the credit cards reached their limit. He didn't just steal their money, he weaponized their empathy. He ran a Ponzi scheme, not with stocks or crypto, but with human hearts, using victim A's life savings to buy victim B's loyalty. Today, we peel back the layers of the most sophisticated social engineer of the digital age. We're going beyond the headlines to see how a boy named Shimon Hayut became a god of deception. Look at his face. Look at the charm. Now ask yourself, honestly, would you have seen the trap, or would you have been the one signing the check? To understand how Simon Leviev operated, you have to stop looking at this as a romance and start looking at it as a liquidity cycle. In the financial world, a Ponzi scheme relies on new investors to pay the dividends of the old ones. Simon applied this exact metric to human emotion. He created the world's first romantic Ponzi pyramid. Here is how the machinery worked. Simon didn't use his own money to impress a woman. He couldn't. He didn't have any. Instead, the five-star dinner he bought for victim B in Prague was fully funded by the maximumed-out credit cards of victim A in Oslo. And the private jet he used to fly victim C to Switzerland, that was paid for by victim B. Every asset was recycled, but to get the first dollar, he needed a psychological weapon. Enter love bombing. This wasn't just sending flowers. This was an aggressive, overwhelming deployment of affection designed to hack the victim's brain chemistry. Within 48 hours of meeting, he would send dozens of texts, voice notes calling them his future wife, pictures of him traveling the world, looking stressed, yet deeply in love. He created an artificial sense of intimacy that usually takes years to build, achieved in mere days. Once the emotional anchor was secured, Phase 2 initiated, the manufactured crisis. Suddenly, the fairy tale breaks. Simon sends a video. He's in the back of an ambulance. There's blood on his bodyguard's face. His tone is frantic, whispering, terrified. "My enemies," he says. "They found me. My security team told me to freeze all my accounts for safety. I need cash, now." This is where the social engineering peaks. The victim isn't being asked to give money to a businessman. She is being asked to save the life of the man she loves. She opens new bank accounts, she takes out loans, she hands over American Express cards. She thinks she is a hero protecting her partner. In reality, she just signed the check for his next date. To the outside world, Simon Leviev was a masterclass in sophistication. But if you look beneath the tailored suits and the diamond-encrusted watches, you don't find a billionaire, you find a ghost. Long before he was cruising the Mediterranean on super yachts, his reality was much darker. His birth name wasn't Simon Leviev, it was Shimon Hayut. Born in a low-income neighborhood in Tel Aviv, Israel, Shimon was never content with a normal life. His father was a local rabbi, a humble man living a modest existence, but Shimon wanted the world, and he wanted it immediately. By the age of 20, he wasn't studying or building a startup. He was stealing checks from families he worked for, including a family where he babysat their young child. He used that stolen money to buy a prestige car, a Porsche, driving it around the streets of Israel to pretend he was already successful. When the Israeli police caught on to his early frauds, Shimon didn't face the music. He fled the country on a fake passport, crossing borders into Europe as a fugitive. This is the exact moment Shimon Hayut died, and the persona of Simon Leviev was born. Psychologists who study high-level fraudsters point to a very specific trait: malignant narcissism. Shimon didn't just want money. He craved the validation of being perceived as a god, an elite businessman controlling global industries. He didn't view his victims as people. To him, they were secondary characters, props in a movie where he was the director, the writer, and the absolute star. Think about the sheer scale of the theater. To convince a woman he was the heir to LLD Diamonds, a real multi-million-dollar company, he didn't just tell a lie. He built a living, breathing ecosystem. He legally changed his last name to Leviev so that any quick Google search by a suspicious victim would connect him to the real diamond tycoon, Lev Leviev. Then, he hired fake bodyguards, like his massive associate Peter. He paid an assistant to answer emails from a fake corporate domain. He even brought his ex-girlfriend, the mother of his child, on trips to play the role of a supportive co-parent, paying her with stolen cash to keep the illusion alive. It was a Hollywood set operating in real time, and every single person on his payroll, from the private jet pilots to the luxury drivers, was being paid with the stolen funds of the woman he had defrauded just the week before. He was essentially running a psychological war room. But narcissism has a fatal flaw: hubris, an absolute belief that you are too smart to get caught. Shimon truly believed his own script. He believed that because the women technically signed the bank loans themselves, he was legally untouchable. He thought he was playing chess while the world played checkers, completely blind to the fact that his victims were about to change the rules of the game. Every empire built on lies has an expiration date, and Shimon's clock was ticking fast. By late 2019, the financial house of cards was too heavy to sustain. A Swedish woman named Pernilla Sjöholm and a Norwegian graduate named Cecilia Fjellhøy crossed paths online. That was the exact moment the hunter became the prey. Together, they discovered they had been sharing the exact same boyfriend, flying on the exact same private jets, and paying for the exact same luxury lifestyle with their own ruined credit lines. Imagine the sudden, chilling realization that the man you thought was your future was actually a highly sophisticated financial predator. But they didn't break down. They chose to fight back. They took a massive risk and contacted journalists from VG, Norway's largest newspaper. They handed over everything: thousands of WhatsApp messages, frantic voice notes, bank receipts, and flight records. The journalists didn't just write a story. They initiated a sting operation. They actually boarded a flight with Pernilla to Munich, hiding their cameras, waiting to catch the billionaire prince in his natural habitat. When the trap began to close, Shimon's behavior shifted instantly. The polished, charming diamond heir vanished. In his place was something venomous. He realized the media was closing in, and his response was pure, cold, psychological terror. He started sending dark, aggressive voice notes to the women. His voice dropped the smooth accent, replaced by a harsh, threatening tone. He told them, Every action you take, you will pay for it with your life. He threatened them with lawsuits, with international criminal organizations, with total destruction. He claimed he was untouchable, but the myth of Simon Leviev was already dead. The VG investigative article dropped, spreading across the internet like wildfire. His face was plastered on screens across the globe. He became completely radioactive. Suddenly, the illusion was shattered. No more private Gulfstream jets, no more five-star hotels. The credit cards were blacklisted worldwide. For the first time in nearly a decade, Shimon was forced to live like a normal fugitive. He was spotted traveling through Greece, hiding out in cheap, dirty hostels, eating low-grade fast food, and using desperate new aliases to scam local shops and women out of just a few $100s at a time. The high-rolling king of Tinder, reduced to a petty internet scavenger, sleeping with one eye open. But his narcissism would ultimately be his undoing. He couldn't resist walking the public streets of Athens, still believing he could outsmart the system. In late 2019, while operating under the fake name David Sharon, Interpol and Israeli intelligence closed the net. The man who had stolen $10 million with a smile was pinned against a wall and forced to look into the camera of a police mugshot. The Prince of Diamonds was finally in handcuffs. But the handcuffs in Athens weren't the result of standard police work alone. They were the climax of a brilliant, cold-blooded act of poetic justice. Enter Aileen Charlotte, a tech-savvy fashion executive from Amsterdam, and Shimon's final victim. Aileen had been dating Simon for 14 months. She had already given him $140,000 of her own money, but while sitting in an airport, she opened her phone and saw the newly published VG investigative report. Her world stopped. The man she loved, the man she was trying to save from invisible enemies, was a global fraud. Most people would panic or confront the monster. Aileen did neither. She chose to outsmart the master of manipulation. She called Shimon, keeping her voice perfectly calm, pretending she hadn't seen the news. She told him, "Simon, the press is lying. I believe you, but you need cash. Credit cards are blocked. Let me take all your luxury designer clothes, the Gucci, the Prada, the Louis Vuitton, and I will sell them in Europe to get you clean money." Shimon, blinded by his own massive ego, took the bait. He handed over suitcases filled with tens of thousands of dollars worth of elite fashion. Aileen took the clothes, flew back to Amsterdam, and kept every single dollar for herself. For weeks, Shimon was texting her from cheap Greek hostels, begging for the money, crying, screaming that he couldn't afford a meal. The billionaire prince, reduced to begging his own victim for pocket change. Aileen simply replied with short, cold texts, delaying him, draining his remaining sanity, while quietly feeding his exact location and new fake names directly to the authorities. She didn't just get a fraction of her money back. She emotionally dismantled the most dangerous con artist on the internet. And when Interpol finally pinned Shimon against that wall in Greece, it was because a woman he thought he had broken had set the ultimate trap. You would think that a man who shattered dozens of lives and stole $10 million across multiple countries would face decades behind bars. But the reality of the international justice system is far more disappointing. After his dramatic arrest in Greece, Shimon Hayut was extradited back to Israel. He was sentenced to just 15 months in prison, not for the millions he stole from the women in Europe, but for his older domestic fraud charges from years prior. He was never even charged for the international Tinder scams. And it gets worse. Due to prison overcrowding and good behavior, Shimon was released after serving just 5 months. 5 months of jail time for $10 million of psychological and financial devastation. Today, Simon Leviev is a free man, and he isn't hiding in the shadows. If you open Instagram right now, you will find him living the exact same lifestyle he used to pitch on Tinder. He drives custom Ferraris, wears designer labels, and flies on private jets. He launched a website charging over $100 for a single personalized video message. He started offering high-priced mentoring programs, teaching young men how to succeed in business. He even signed with a Hollywood talent manager, attempting to launch his own dating show, while his victims are still paying off massive bank loans, working extra shifts just to avoid bankruptcy. The man who ruined them is capitalizing on his internet infamy. He didn't lose. In the twisted economy of modern social media, his crimes became his ultimate leverage for fame. Shimon Hayut proved that with enough confidence, you can build an empire out of pure thin air and get away with it. Which leaves us with one final, uncomfortable question. Who is truly at fault here? Is it the apex predator who exploited the system? Or is it a culture that rewards the shameless with attention and wealth? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to understand the dark psychology behind the world's most sophisticated deceivers, make sure to subscribe to the Discovery Vault. Until next time, keep your eyes open.